Welcome to the home of the Mustangs, DCG TV. It's time for another edition of Mustang Full Gallop. My name is Eric Connor, joined once again by Coach Scott Heitland, head coach of the football program. Coach, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
Well, I bet you are. Yeah. Well, before we look ahead to this week, last week, first game in Class 5A, no problem. Walk away with a 28-19 win at Urbandale. How do you feel about the win? I know the bus ride short, but it must have been pretty fun.
Yeah. A lot of feelings after that first game. If you go back and think about what we talked about on Thursday night, as far as keys to winning and things that we needed to do to be successful, I think we did that. We didn't turn the ball over a lot. We had the 2 fumbles. That was the one area that we worked on this week. But penalties were good, execution was good, special teams were amazing. Just really proud of our kids. They've practiced with kind of a hunger and a desire to get things off on the right foot, and our coaching staff did an amazing job. They had a great game plan put into place, and just all around, kudos to everybody, because it was a great win, a good solid win that gives us a lot of confidence coming into week 2.
Yeah, and those 3 things that you had talked about last week, winning in the trenches, like you said, the penalties, you only had 4 penalties on the night, which is really good for a first game.
Yeah.
And then the turnovers, obviously you were down 1 there, but those big boys up front, offensive linemen, really did a nice job opening up holes for Ozzie Grimm. I think he had 164 yards on the ground, a touchdown on 29 carries.
Yeah, those guys did a great job. I can't tell you the last time we've run for 228 yards. We have here and there, but to come out week 1 and do it that way against that opponent, I think was really impressive. And Braden Hasty, Lucas Scholl, Brevin Muller, Brody Miller, Landon Montford did a great job. Ben Rao was in there quite a bit as well. Those 5-6 guys really deserve a lot of credit.
And I know you're up front during the game. I got to tell you real quick. This is actually not even on my question sheet, but I saw Ben Rao talk about a team player. He's kind of lost his starting spot at center position this year, but he was back there helping the guys, coaching them, getting them riled up. I thought that was really cool.
When we get to the end of the season, we'll talk about that young man, because I got a lot to say about him and some really good stuff too.
Good, can't wait. You mentioned special teams.
Yeah.
I really thought that's what turned the game in the Mustangs' favor.
Yeah.
And pretty cool coach, dad moment.
Yeah.
Chase Heitland, he scored on a jet sweep for a touchdown on offense.
Yeah.
And then he had 126 yards, return yards in the punt area, and returned that 1 for a touchdown, which turned the game. What's it like seeing him do so well and being able to coach him?
I told somebody this weekend, he's been catching passes and pretending that he's been in a football game since he's been 5 years old in our basement. He's going to hate it that I said that in front of everybody. But, it's one of those things where it's just exciting that it's finally here. I'm really proud of him and the work that he's put in. I think he works very hard to prove that he deserves to be out there, that he's not out there just because of who his dad is. And, I was just really excited for him to have that moment last week where, some of that hard work paid off a little bit. I think we kind of got an idea of what he could do for us during the track season. He had a really strong track season. And, he had another 50 yards on punt return call back.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it was almost close to 200 yards and maybe 2 to the house. So just really proud of him for what he's done. And, proud of him and the way he leads by example in the weight room and at practice. And so, had a little dad moment when I just got kind of excited and ran down the sideline too. And then remembered that I had to stay in the box because I was a coach. So, good. Starting off with special teams, here's the thing I want people to remember is we had the big special teams touchdown, which really, at a 14-7 ball game, thrust us into control. Mm-hmm. And it forced them to start doing things that they didn't want to do. It forced them to start pressing a little bit. But after that, we had a blocked extra point, which forced them to go for 2 when they didn't want to. Yep. Connor Stolpe had that one. Forced them to go for 2, which they didn't get, so we made a play on the 2-point conversion then the next time on, and then we recovered 2 onside kicks.
Chase Heitland again?
Yeah, he had both those. And the one that gets overlooked is we downed a punt inside the 5.
That's right.
So when it comes to special teams, I couldn't be happier with how they performed. And really, when it gets down to it, offense and defense played really well. Special teams won that football game for us Friday night.
I believe so as well. Well, speaking of the defense, Connor Stolpe doing Connor Stolpe things.
Yep.
Obviously, he had the blocked extra point, and then 10 tackles, a fumble recovery. And then I thought the defensive line, especially Carter Stewart and Cole Torski, really played well.
They did. And that was a group that's really untested. going into week one. And, if somebody really would have pinned me down and said, what's the one thing you might be concerned about going into week one, it was, how many of those guys are going to hold up, because we just haven't seen them. Max is new to the position. We felt like we knew what Cole and Luke could do, but Max is new. You just got a lot of new faces in there. But I was really proud of how they held up, and they had a tough assignment. Their Urbandale quarterback, the Rinnan kid, is really good.
Oh, he's tough to bring down.
He had close to 300 yards of total offense. And one of the things that we just kind of said is the only stat that really matters at the end of the night is did you win or lose on Friday night. And that stat said that we won, and we may have given up a few more yards than we would have liked. But it's a little easier pill to swallow when you got the W at the end of the day.
Yeah, always a good learning experience when you win.
Correct.
Well, speaking of the defensive line, week 2, Ottumwa coming to town.
Yeah.
It's a home game. They are going to do some stuff on offense that maybe you guys don't see a lot of, maybe once a year. I don't know what to call it, a veer, call it an option, all that stuff combined in. How are you preparing for that on the defensive side of the ball, and how are the guys feeling this week?
Well, this is a football team that a year ago, I think, were 6 or maybe 7 game winners and just missed the playoffs. And so, they're coming off one of their best seasons in, recent memory. And so I'm sure that they are excited to get up here. They got to win week 1. So it'll be 2 teams that are 1-0 playing on Friday night. But, I think the biggest thing we have to do is, I told this to Omar on the radio today, the guys up front I'm not as worried about as the guys on the back. The guys on front, we have to play physical. We've got to know where our responsibilities are. We've got to be able to get our hands on people, and then really just hold your ground and not give up your gap and not get washed down, be able to take on double teams. It's the guys in the back that are my biggest concern this week, because they give you that same look every single time. And about the time you've seen it for the 12th, 13th, 14th time, you get bored or your eyes start to wander. Then the next thing you know, you got a guy running 20 yards behind you, wide open with his hand up, and they complete a long pass on us. So it's those safeties and corners that I've really been watching the most this week in practice, reminding them to be disciplined, stay on each play, make sure that they're reading their keys and seeing what they're reading, because that's what's going to get us in trouble more than anything.
Yeah, don't get lulled to sleep.
Right.
In a sense.
Right. It's kind of like just Novocaine. It just numbs you up, and then you think you're seeing the same thing, and he pulls it and throws it, and then you're in trouble.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say how great the fans were on the road last week at Urbandale, our DCG fans, especially the student section. I thought they really showed out. It was really cool. So I expect them to be packing this place.
Yeah.
I believe it's senior night right off the bat.
Yep.
And
senior
then
night.
What, youth football night
Youth
as
football
well?
night, yep.
So you guys have a lot of things going on. How do you avoid distractions?
That stuff doesn't affect us. The guys, senior night, we moved senior night to the first game of the year back in 2020, because you never know how many more games you're going to get. And we really liked doing it up front. We liked kind of as a, hey, good luck type of moment, and thank you rather than just a thank you and, kind of emotional moment, which it can be at the end of the year. So we've kept it up front, and I like that. The weather's usually a little better too. And that's nice. But, a lot of that stuff, it's outside the white lines. We don't, our kids probably couldn't tell you it's youth football night. That's just something I've got to get ready and get organized throughout the week, and go down and talk to the guys on the field when we're done here. But it brings people to the game too. I told the guys at our team meal tonight, there's nothing better than a Friday night in your community. I don't care whether you're small town, big town, medium town, but football games are truly the last great community event that operate in and around our schools. Not that other sports don't have their moments too, but you think on a Friday night, it's the first event the first events that are back. You've got a significant number of students that come. You have an over 100-person marching band. We probably got close to 50 cheerleaders and dance team members. We've got over 125 football players. You're starting to talk about 50, maybe 60% of your student body that's here, and then all the people in town that want to come out and watch. We want to make sure that we have an atmosphere here that's fun, that people want to bring their kids to, that, and then obviously we want to put a good product on the field too. And, win or lose over the years, our fans tend to show up and be very supportive, which, they have no idea how grateful we are for that. Because, when you're winning, it's fun, and it's fun to see the bleachers packed. And, we, like last year though, when the wins weren't as often, they still came out and cheered on our kids. And, and then that's something that's really makes this community special, both communities.
I think it'll be special Friday night as well. Thanks, Coach,
you bet.
For joining us. So remember, Friday night, Ottumwa, 7 p.m. Pack the stands, join us, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And I appreciate you guys watching. And as always, go Mustangs.
Go Mustangs.